Good morning, everybody. Thank you all for being here. There's so many friends and colleagues in this fight, and I want to thank you all for being here. I won't recognize everybody because we'll be here all day, but let me start by thanking the sponsor of what we're doing here today, Reproductive Equity Now, and in particular, Rebecca Hart-Holder. Welcome home, Becca, to Connecticut, and Liz Gustafson, and the whole team, and we'll hear from them in a second. So, it's been a couple days, and we've all had a chance to think hard about what happened and where we are as a state and as a country, and the risks and the threats ahead. And we've had an opportunity to think about what all of this means to all of us personally and in our lives and our families. And so when I was thinking about how I wanted to introduce people this morning, I reflexively thought in my head that I would say thank you to friends, activists, advocates, and allies, and then I stopped for a second. And I thought to myself, I don't like that word, allies. Because allies suggest that we are not actually in this fight, that we're like in a supporting role, especially the men, that somehow this isn't about us, that we're adjacent to this fight. This is our fight too. That's what this is about today. Everybody getting into this fight. Let me tell you how it's my fight. Liz and I have 3 beautiful children, 18, 16, and 13. But we have had complicated pregnancies. And when I read about women in Texas dying now, left for dead in hospital parking lots because they can't get routine care, health care, a DNC when they have a miscarriage, or they're in the middle of a miscarriage and in the process of bleeding out, I think of my wife. And in a different time and place, what would have happened to us? I'm in this fight because, not just because I have one adult, it's hard to say, adult daughter and teenage daughter, 18 and 16, not just because I'm their dad, but because they're just starting their lives. They have everything in front of them. Right? And I just want it all to be open to them. Anything they want to do, any place they want to go. That's all a father wants for their children. And they do. We're blessed. God blessed to live in Connecticut, and they have all of that in front of them. And yet they are flying directly into this hurricane. Where hardly a day goes by that somebody doesn't try to control their lives, make decisions for them, not just impair their liberties or take fundamental rights away, but to do them harm. That's what this is about. And I think about my son. It's his fight too. He's 13, he's just starting to figure it out. And you know, if he's lucky and fortunate, as I have been and many of us have, he'll find somebody and they'll make decisions together about their lives. And it won't go exactly the way they want it to. And that's the key. And they will be challenged like many of us are. And I want him and his partner and his family to be able to make decisions for themselves and what's right for them. That's why we are in this fight. Because it's our fight, it's our shared responsibility. We are in it together. It's not somebody else's problem, it's ours too. And that's why all of us have to jump in and lend a hand and be at the ready for what is ahead. In case it sounds a little abstract still to people, and it shouldn't, but in case you think this happens to other people somewhere else and it's not real, it is very real. A few weeks ago, Attorney General Tish James of New York, my close colleague now for 6 years, sent me a text. And she said, Ken, and I know who Ken is, Ken Paxton of Texas. Ken is going after healthcare records of women who seek healthcare and reproductive healthcare and abortions outside of Texas. And he's going after them. He's not the first, by the way, but he's using the enormous power of the state of Texas to do that. And she said, we have to fight. We have to stop him. And for us living here in a great state like this, sometimes it can seem a little far away at times, even though things do happen in Connecticut, like at crisis pregnancy centers, okay? But we went to Texas, Tish and I, to see for ourselves. We went to Austin. Austin, if you've never been, it's a college town. It is a purple, maybe even blue part of Texas. And we were invited to tour a women's healthcare clinic. This is a clinic that not more than 2.5 years ago was full of people, full of activity, right? Doctors, nurses, jam-packed, full of families and women and patients getting healthcare, not just reproductive healthcare, not just abortion, but OBGYN, mammography, routine healthcare that they couldn't go get anywhere else, right? This was an underserved population that needed that clinic. When I visited a few months ago, empty, closed. One staff member, no patients, no women, right? No doctors, no nurses. One administrative staff person, exam rooms, empty. Machines unplugged, right? Exam tables unused, cold, lifeless. They like that word, life, by the way. This is the absence of life. And I have said many times to many of you, I think probably standing here, there is in this country now a war on American women and patients. And if there is a war, and there is, Texas is the front, Mississippi is the front, Florida, Louisiana, and on the front, healthcare for women is closed, abandoned, shuttered, gone. And that's why when Caitlin Cash, who I met at this healthcare clinic, when she had a tragic condition with her fetus that had a fetal anomaly, every time she moved, she risked the fetus breaking the fetus's bones, and it was certain that her fetus would not survive if she gave birth, that she had to leave the state of Texas in the dark of night and go to Kansas to get health care, just to get health care. And now you read about women who, as I said, are in the process of miscarrying, can't get the health care they need, and they're bleeding out and they're dying. This isn't in some fourth dimension. This isn't in some foreign place. This is in the United States of America. And the people in Texas are our people too. And God forbid you go from Connecticut and you're a young woman like Eleanor Tong and you go there for school or graduate school, or you're on a business trip and you find yourself needing emergency health care, God bless. In 2024 in America. We together have been in every single fight. We were in Dobbs as a state. We fought as hard as we could. We're in the mifepristone fight. We took the fight to them in mifepristone, by the way. We were tired of sitting back and letting it happen, and so we went on offense. And I have my two special counsels for reproductive rights here, Emily Gate and Alma Nunley, and we are taking the fight to them, and because of that, we went to federal court in Washington State and secured a court order that makes it clear by law that mifepristone remains safe, legal, and accessible here in Connecticut and in 17 other states. It has been a mixed bag in taking on extreme bans in Idaho and in Texas, and the fight that many of the advocates know about, the EMTALA fight, and the fight about access to emergency health care. But we are going to be in this fight every single day, but we cannot do it alone. So that's what today is about. It's about inviting a broader community of advocates and lawyers to help us in this fight, to build what I have been talking for, or to strengthen, frankly, what I have been talking about for the last 6 years, the firewall that all of us are joined together in to protect women, patients, doctors, and nurses, our neighbors, our friends, our family, not somebody else, the people that we love. So I'm going to turn it over now to Rebecca Hartholder, the CEO of Reproductive Equity Now, to tell us about the hotline that we're setting up and this firewall that we're building together. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you all for joining us this morning. I want to thank the AG in particular for his extraordinary leadership, not just today, but every day. It has been an incredibly challenging week for our nation. After Tuesday's presidential election, we know that there is a lot of confusion, fear, terror, and grief. And we want to make sure that patients understand that abortion remains legal in all 6 New England states, including here in Connecticut. If you are scheduled for an abortion, keep your appointment. If you need help accessing care, if you need emotional or spiritual help, you can find resources at Reproductive Equity Now's New England Abortion Care Guide. Right now, patients need our support. Providers need our guidance. This movement demands bold, innovative, tenacious, state-based leadership. And that's why we are so proud to be fighting back against the chaos and confusion that anti-abortion politicians have sowed with a new resource to support patients, providers, and helpers here in the Nutmeg State. Today, the Reproductive Equity Now Foundation, in partnership with the Connecticut Attorney General and top law firms across the state, including Rawthorne Law, Franklin and Frankel, Koskoff, and Beater, Silver, Golub, and Tiedel, and many more, are announcing and launching the Connecticut Abortion Legal Hotline. This free and confidential legal resource will be able to help connect providers and patients seeking or offering care with attorneys in Connecticut for pro bono legal assistance. Patients and providers can call our hotline at 833-309-6301, or they can fill out a secure form at our website, which is reproequitynow.org/hotline. Our staff will call patients and providers back to do the case intake and then make a referral to a Connecticut attorney. This hotline is an expansion of the Massachusetts Abortion Legal Hotline, which has already helped connect more than 150 patients and providers with the support they need to access and provide care. I want to tell you a little bit about some of the questions that we've heard on the hotline. Questions like, I'm an abortion provider helping a patient traveling from out of state. How do I protect the patient and how do I protect myself? I'm a patient traveling for care. How do I know I'm safe? Where can I go to make sure I can access legitimate care? I'm the parent of a young person in a banned state and I need to get them abortion care. How do I do it? Or, I have had a negative experience with an anti-abortion center or crisis pregnancy center. Can you please help me? Right now, we need patients and providers in Connecticut to also get and offer care with confidence that they will be backed up by an extraordinary legal community. This hotline will be a lifeline in a second hostile Trump administration. We are not oblivious to or impervious to the threats to abortion access that we will be facing at the national stage. Donald Trump, J.D. Vance, their allies in Congress, and their buddies on the Supreme Court have a clear end game. It is banning abortion nationwide It is restricting access to the full spectrum of reproductive health care from contraception all the way to IVF, and it is decimating bodily autonomy and reproductive freedom. What we knew after the Dobbs decision, after the 2016 election, and what we have known for the long life of this movement is that the fight to defend abortion access is local. It is based here in our states and our communities. And information is power. And to put information in the hands of patients and providers is to fight back. People will always need abortions, and it is up to all of us to ensure that they can continue to get the care that they deserve. Connecticut has time and again stepped up and proven itself to be a place that will meet the moment, and now is no different. So thank you to the Office of the Attorney General. Thank you especially to Emily and Alma. Thank you to Jamie Watson on my team, who has worked tirelessly to help stand this hotline up. Thank you to the providers and the funds that are here today, who will continue to provide life-saving and life-affirming abortion care in the midst of this darkness. In times of great duress, we can find strength in supporting our community because we save us. Thank you.
Eleanor Karaguna of Hartford GYN.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Eleanor, and I'm the patient care coordinator at the Hartford GYN Center. And before I begin with what we do there, I want to take a moment to acknowledge the hurt and the fear so many of us and our loved ones are feeling at this moment. I want you to hear me when I say that your reproductive rights are our responsibility. And as providers and advocates for reproductive justice, this is our fight, and we are committed to fight for you. If you are exhausted and ready to give up, I want to say that is okay, and that there are people here ready to carry you when it feels like you cannot take even one more step. I want you to hear that you are not alone. And finally, I want every person who is questioning or doubting this right now to hear this at least once today, is that you belong here. And with that, I will begin. At the Hartford GYN Center, we are proud to be Connecticut's only independent abortion provider, providing comprehensive and compassionate care since 1978. Our clinic has long been a safe and welcoming space where patients can make informed choices about their health with the support of a dedicated team of advocates and clinicians. For many of our patients, the barriers to accessing care are real and significant. Some travel long distances, face financial and social challenges, or worry about legal restrictions of their care. In light of the election, these challenges are set to grow. Hartford GYN Center remains committed to providing a full range of essential sexual and reproductive health care services, regardless of the obstacles ahead. The Attorney General's Office and WREN have been crucial allies in this mission, and we are grateful that the new Connecticut legal hotline will offer patients accurate information about their rights, their legal resources, and support through an increasingly complex and restrictive legal landscape. The election reminds us that misinformation and stigma, bans and barriers to care, and surveillance and criminalization disproportionately harm communities that are already facing systemic inequities. We at the Hartford GYN Center stand with our community here today and will continue to stand with our community tomorrow and the next, whatever the future may bring. Our partnership with WREN and the Connecticut Legal Hotline is vital, helping us strengthen health equity in our state and protect both patients and providers as we navigate these changes together. Independent clinics like ours are committed to bridging gaps in healthcare access. will continue to fight for reproductive freedom and compassionate care for all of our patients. Thank you for your time and support as we face this uncertain future together.
And now we'll hear from Elise Coleman, Reach Fund.
Hi, everyone. I'm so happy and honored to be here today. I'm Elise Coleman, and I represent the Reach Fund, which is Connecticut's only abortion fund. And it's good to get a little good news today, isn't it? We agree? In light of the current state of our country, it's important to let people know that we are here for them. We believe healthcare is a human right. We have the facts instead of propaganda. We're not going to judge you, and we believe your body is your business. As I've been crisscrossing Connecticut and explaining what the Reach Fund is, I've gotten a lot of questions like, is that still legal here? Aren't we okay because we're in a blue state? Didn't the Supreme Court outlaw abortion? Or what about that abortion pill that got banned? Abortion laws are a mess in this country, and everyone is confused. I'm struggling myself. Every day there's more news, more lawsuits, elections, big and small. We at REACH work with abortion providers inside and outside Connecticut who have to navigate this mess. When a pregnant person here needs help and they're past Connecticut's cutoff period of 23 weeks and 6 days, we help them get care in New Jersey or Washington, D.C. And we've teamed up with other abortion funds to help pay huge medical bills for people inside and outside Connecticut. All these places have different laws, and all these patients have different needs, and all of us at REACH are volunteers. We are not lawyers. We have jobs and kids and families and lives, and that's why I'm so grateful for our friends at Reproductive Equity Now. They've been helping people in New England access reproductive health care for years, and now they've introduced this new resource to connect us with pro bono legal support. And we can use our limited funds to pay for more abortions. We can be here for more people. And this is the work that keeps us going. We've had great support from the people of Connecticut, and we ask that you continue to think of us. Mutual aid is going to be essential in these next 4 years. Let's please stick together. We've got this.
Let me just thank our advocates and partner organizations. There are a number represented here. I don't want to miss anybody, but thank you all for being here. Thank you to my legislative colleagues from the House and the Senate. We have bipartisan representation, so thank you all for being here. Let me also just say, as I call Becca up to join me to take questions, we tried to reach out to a lot of folks. I made a lot of calls personally to law firms here in Connecticut. The response has been great. We couldn't reach everybody, so if you're watching right now and you're a lawyer, paralegal, you work at a law firm, you have a solo practice, reach out to our office, reach out to Ren, and we'd love to have you join us. Do you have any questions?
Connecticut Public Radio. Have any lawsuits been filed either against providers and patients in Connecticut, Massachusetts, New Jersey, New York, for obtaining abortion care?
I'm not aware in Connecticut of any meaningful litigation at the moment that impacts providers and patients here in Connecticut. But the reason why I told the story about Texas is because it's happening. And look, I work with these people. We have a lot of other work together. So I know a couple things. I know what they're capable of. I know how much power they have. The Attorney General of Texas, the Attorney General of Florida, they have enormous resources. And I know what their intentions are based on their actions. And so we should not think for a second that what's happening there can't happen here. It can. I'm afraid to say that it may very well happen here. And so that's why we're we're joined together and we have this hotline.
Yeah, I'll just add, I'm not aware of any cases in the rest of New England. When people tell you who they are, it is important to believe them.
Yes.
Attorney General Paxton in Texas has made clear that he will go after the hospital, the private healthcare records of patients. And there is a law on the books in Texas that allows you as any person to file a lawsuit against a provider for offering abortion care. So we should very much anticipate that that is coming to all states.
And it's not just Texas. Mississippi, there's litigation in all of those states brought by their states.
How is that law working, right, since it went into effect, right? So the legislature put that into effect to prevent other states from accessing medical records. How successful is that? And I understand from OBGYNs that quite a few women are coming here from other states.
Yeah, we're lucky that we have a federal law which protects private patient information. I will just be frank that I do not trust the Supreme Court right now to uphold any law as it applies to abortion care.
And that's the federal law that Ken Paxton is attacking.
Yes.
And the other question I had, we've heard on the campaign trail, we've heard President-elect Trump say that women should be punished. What does that mean to you? And is that a serious?
I've gotten a bunch of texts from people saying that they were scared. I'm scared too. Okay, so I'm not going to sugarcoat it. As Becca said, when somebody not just tells you but shows you, remember, Roe fell because of Donald Trump. Let's just be clear about that. Okay, and so they've shown us that they're willing to go all the way on this issue. So we should not have any illusions about the risk to women patients, doctors, nurses here in Connecticut and in our region.
Does it give you any hope that a couple of states pass referendums this year protecting abortion, or is that not enough?
I think it's very clear that when people are voting on the single issue of abortion, they show up. 57% of Floridians voted in favor of a constitutional amendment to protect abortion access. I think it is very unfortunate that that loss in Florida will be perverted to say that it doesn't mean that people support abortion access, when in fact that is not the case. There is hope. There are people standing up and fighting back. We won a ballot initiative in Missouri. We won it in Arizona. We will continue to win at the state and local level.
And you spoke about the Reproductive Rights Defense Act that my legislative colleagues here championed and passed. Not only does that provide a strong firewall of protection for people here in Connecticut, it also has a strong function in clarifying for people that abortion remains safe, legal, and accessible here in Connecticut, and that the law will protect you. And it has a strong deterrent effect to people who want to come into Connecticut and attack people here in our state.
I know there was an initial hotline in 2022 when Roe versus Wade was overturned.
Yeah.
It's my understanding that's no longer in service. What ended up happening with that, and then how is this one maybe different, similar?
So this is the next turn of that effort. That was an initial effort in conjunction with the New York Attorney General, Tish James. I think it was challenging getting the message out there to people to use this resource. I think also, to be fair, this is run by Reproductive Equity Now in private sector, people who are not subject to the same restrictions and obligations as state government. And so my guess is that having a not government-run but government-supported and assisted hotline is a better setup, in that people will feel less worried or concerned about reaching out to a government institution. I should say, though, this is why I'm hesitant to say it, nobody should be worried about calling me and calling our office. But yes, we get requests all the time for information about what we're doing, and we are a public institution, and we have an obligation to provide information to the public when we're asked.
So when someone calls the hotline, what kind of services can they expect to receive, and what specifically is the Attorney General's office's role?
Yeah, I'll take the first part, which is when they call the hotline, they'll leave a voicemail or they will send us an email over a secure encrypted line. And then we will call them back, or we will email them back if they say that that is a safer thing to do and they can't answer the phone. We do an intake to understand what the legal issue is. Sometimes it's an access issue. Sometimes it's a question. The point right now is confusion. So sometimes people say, is abortion even legal here? Can I get it? So sometimes we just need to direct them to the closest provider. But when a patient or a provider calls, we talk to them, and when we figure out it's not an access issue, we distill down the legal issue, and then we work with the bench of attorneys that we have to get them hooked up with the right attorney.
Professor, can you give a sense of what the call volume has been in the hotline in other states like Massachusetts?
Yeah, so we have had about 150 calls in the 18 months that we have been stood up in Massachusetts. I will say that the call volume really spikes when there is something happening in the national news. So it's moments like this that we see increased activity. We will see another spike again when Judge Kaczmarek in the Northern District of Texas takes on the mifepristone case once again. So it's really, you know, I can't give you a X amount a week. It really depends on what's happening in the national news.
How do you market it? I mean, how does the average person know that
Yeah.
this is a resource for them to go to?
It's a great question. We have done a lot of digital advertising in Massachusetts. We anticipate doing the same thing here. Ads on buses, you know, we try to meet people where they are. It is also a really important resource to get out to the community. So we have stickers with QR codes. We put them all over the place. We put them in bathrooms. We find that that is an extremely effective place to notify people. So we just try to reach people where they are. And frankly, news conferences like this and making sure that this is covered in the press is a very, very important way of getting the word out.
Yeah, and that's why we're here. The answer to your question is we're gonna do whatever they need us to do to help them, to stand this up and to run it and protect them, frankly, if Ren faces its own risks. And I think having this press conference, pushing the message out through this platform and our channels, through our partners, through our legislators, I mean, they'll have the number in their offices. Their aides will have the number and be able to direct people. So this is a resource for everybody.
And just for clarity's sake, on the state's website, there's a number for the New York Attorney General's hotline, the 212 number. Is this replacing that?
I haven't figured out whether it's replacing it or if I believe so, yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. And then who sort of is funding the hotline? I know you folks are running it, and sort of how much does that cost?
Well, like any nonprofit, we have a variety of people who donate to the organization, so that's how it's being funded. I can't give you the exact cost.
And for attorneys who might want to get involved, what practice areas are you looking for?
Practice area. We need help on healthcare law, on tax law, on real estate and asset protection. People who specialize in telehealth have been incredibly important. Just the range of questions, like employment law is another one. The range of questions that we get is huge.
Would this be 24 hours?
You can leave a message or send an email any time of day. Yeah.
All right. Thanks, everybody.